My husband Robert and I were high school classmates. Our relationship started during our sophomore year school trip. I had a dream to become a doctor. At the same time, Robert had his own dream. He wanted to be a lawyer. We each pursued our dreams and enrolled in our respective universities. It seemed like everything was going smoothly, but Robert failed the bar exam 5 years in a row. After that, Robert started working in sales at a general corporation. On the other hand, I was able to become an obstetrician after 6 years of university and 2 years of residency.
Congrats on becoming a doctor and achieving your dream, Amy.
Robert rejoiced over my accomplishment as if it were his own. Thank you. I think things are going to get even busier from now on. I'm sorry if I have to cancel our dates more often than before. I had been called in for some emergencies several times during my residency. As a full-fledged doctor, I would have to work with more responsibility, especially in obstetrics. We can't schedule a baby's delivery date. We have to be ready 24/7, 365 days a year, whenever the baby decides to be delivered. There would be no time for dates or anything like that. Feeling guilty, I apologized to Robert. He replied,
So, why don't we just get married?
Huh? Get married?
Yeah, that way we can always be together. You can go to work whenever you need to. If we have a child, and you suddenly have to go to work, I'll support you.
Surprised by the sudden proposal, I felt comforted by his reassuring words. I remember tearfully saying, Thank you. I appreciate it. OB-GYN is the only field that deals with the birth of life. Of course, we also treat diseases, but there's a joy in this field that can't be found anywhere else. It's a job I could call my calling. I'm currently 35 years old. I've been working as an OB-GYN for 9 years now. I've witnessed many births and delivered many babies. However, Robert and I have been married for 7 years, and we don't have any children. We both love kids, and Robert was eager to have many when we first got married, saying,
I want a lot of kids. I'll work hard.
But that enthusiasm has faded over time. I thought that having children was a blessing, and there was nothing we could do about it. But that no longer seemed to matter. Recently, we hardly ever go out together on our days off. Robert seems to be busy with something in his room all the time. He has put a lock on his room and always locks it when he is inside. We used to sleep together in the same bedroom when we first got married, but because of my work, I sometimes had to leave the house in the middle of the night, so we decided to sleep in separate rooms to avoid disturbing Robert. Also, when I work late or night shifts and I'm not home, Robert also comes home late. I know this because we have a dog at home. We've installed a pet cam in the living room where the dog's kennel is, so we can always watch our pet. The camera is set to send a notification to our phones when someone comes home, so I always know when Robert gets back. Of course, Robert knows about this camera, and we can both view it from our phones. One day, I received a notification on my phone at an unusual time. It was on a day when I was working a night shift, but it seemed like Robert had returned home at the usual time. Normally, I wouldn't mind, but the sound of that notification felt odd. Since I was on break, I immediately checked my phone. On it was a video of my husband and a woman's legs in a skirt. What's this? I inadvertently exclaimed aloud in the break room. The other nurses around me asked what was wrong, but I replied with a feigned smile saying it was nothing. After that, the notifications of Robert getting home at the usual time hit more often on the days I worked night shifts. However, whenever I checked, only the woman's feet were visible. Even if I confronted him about it, I thought Robert would play dumb. So I marked the days I was on and off duty on our calendar at home. Then, on that day, I decided to wait for Robert to come home with someone. That person was my younger brother. In fact, I left my dog at my brother's place since the day after I found out about a woman coming over to my place. I felt guilty about leaving the dog alone in a house where I didn't know when Robert would bring the woman again. I waited in my brother's car for 30 minutes. Robert returned home right on time. There was a woman walking with him, her arm linked with his. Seeing this, I thought I would lose my composure, but maybe because my much younger brother was next to me, I strangely kept my cool. I immediately started recording a video with my phone.
My brother-in-law is bold. Doesn't he worry about being seen by the neighbors?
my brother said after I finished filming the two who had comfortably walked into the entrance. Yeah, there must be neighbors watching.
It would be strange if there weren't people watching at this time.
I found myself agreeing. Looking around, it seemed it was during the rush hour when neighbors were returning home. I hadn't noticed because I worked on an irregular schedule, but I just realized that this is the general time when people return home. That night, I stayed at my brother's house, playing with my beloved dog, and then sleeping. The next day, I decided to visit a neighbor with whom I am particularly close to and asked about Robert and the woman. It seems the neighbor also found it suspicious and had asked about it. He had apparently answered that she was his sister. The neighbors believed him, since they knew that I also had a brother who was much younger than me. Now that I also had testimony from my neighbor, I was thinking about when to propose a divorce to Robert, when one morning a familiar face appeared in the consultation room.
Thank you in advance.
The woman who entered with a worried voice was none other than, I believe, Robert's mistress. I was about to make a strange sound, but I held it back. I switched into work mode and said, "Congratulations! You're 8 weeks pregnant."
Really? I'm so happy. Doctor, is the baby a girl or a boy?
We can't tell the gender yet, but everything's going well for now.
I see. I wish I could find out soon. He wants a girl.
She was tenderly rubbing her belly, and even though I hadn't asked, she continued.
I'm not married yet, but I'm thinking of getting him to marry me now that I'm pregnant.
Is that so? I replied in a way that wouldn't upset her.
Actually, he's only been divorced for 2 months. They say you can't remarry until 100 days have passed.
Really? Is the father of your baby your boyfriend? At the hospital today?
Yes, he's waiting for me in the car.
She answered with joy. I told her that I'd like to discuss the future with him too, so she went out to call him in with a smile. 15 minutes later, after attending other patients in between, I called her back. Then, as expected, Robert walked in from behind her. Robert blurted,
"Excuse me,"
when he caught sight of my professional smile.
"What? Huh? Why is Amy here?"
Saying that, he looked at the nameplate on the office wall and muttered,
"No way."
I work under my husband's surname, not my maiden name. Many female doctors continue to use their maiden names, but in my case, my maiden name was quite rare and difficult to pronounce. However, Robert's last name is the most common surname in the States, so he probably didn't pay much attention to it. At the hospital where I work, there happened to be no doctors with the same last name in the same department, so I only used my last name on the nameplate. Seeing Robert's disturbed look, the woman looked puzzled.
"Amy, that's me, right? We came in together. Of course I'm here."
I was stunned by her words. His lover's name is Amelia. Certainly she is Amy. However, calling your wife and mistress by the same nickname is beyond despicable. Being cornered by his mistress, Robert stammered.
No, this is a bit...
So I decided to explain for her. "Amelia, my name is Jamie. I'm also Amy."
"What? Bobby, you've been cheating?"
"Bobby?" I nearly burst out laughing at the reality of a 35-year-old man being called Bobby. "Huh, I see you have her call you Bobby. Did you tell her where I work?"
No. I forgot that you worked here."
Robert was taken aback. It seemed he either didn't care or never asked about where I worked. Despite that, his mistress was confronting him.
"Bobby, who's this woman?" No.
Robert was unable to explain. Well, that's not surprising, considering that, according to the story I just heard from his mistress, Robert has been divorced from me for the last 2 months. Faced with Robert's silence, I decided to confront the mistress with reality. "Amelia, I am Robert's wife."
"What? Robert? So you lied about getting a divorce to marry me?"
That's when Robert spoke up.
"That's not it. For now, just be quiet, Amy."
"What are you talking about? We need to clarify this. You've been deceiving me, haven't you?"
"I said be quiet."
Robert seemed very flustered. Well, of course he would be. No one could remain calm while being accused by their mistress in front of their wife. "When did you start seeing Robert?"
"About a year ago."
Unlike Robert, the mistress answered my question honestly. "I see. So, you were aware that Robert was married when you started the relationship, correct?"
"But Bobby said that his wife was constantly cheating, and their marriage was already in ruins."
"Regardless, having a relationship while knowing he's married? Your act is subject to compensation. I responded with a smile on my face.
But he's already divorced, right? We're not divorced.
At this point, Robert tried to silence the mistress once again. However, this sparked an argument in the examination room. Several nurses noticed the argument and came into the room. Since this could interrupt subsequent consultations, I called for security to escort the two out. That night, I decided to have a discussion with the two of them at a coffee shop. I thought about some strategies and called my brother during lunch to explain the situation and ask him to join the discussion at night. After hearing the whole story, my brother asked,
I know it's a weird question, but why did you guys not have any kids?
Upon hearing that, I exclaimed, "That's it! Thank you, little brother!" and embraced my brother in a childish way, ruffling his hair. This would certainly be another blow to Robert.
Stop it!
My brother pushed me away, but left me with some supportive words.
Let me know if there's anything I can help with.
I'm not afraid of anything anymore. From here on out, I'm going to hit them with the most severe punishment. That night, as my brother and I waited for them at the coffee shop, they appeared, and the first thing they said was,
You're also having an affair, aren't you?
At these words, my brother spoke up.
Long time no see, brother-in-law. How have you been? Huh? Brother-in-law? You don't mean? Yes, I was just a teenager when you two got married.
My brother and I are 9 years apart. He's grown quite mature over the past 7 years, so I guess it's understandable that he didn't recognize him. Furthermore, my brother added,
I'm here today as a witness, so please keep that in mind.
Fixing Robert and his lover with a sharp gaze.
Huh? A witness?
Robert looked shocked. In fact, my brother had become a lawyer. Moreover, a lawyer who specializes in divorce cases. He knew about Robert's multiple bar exam failures and had been considerate not to mention it. More importantly, let's continue our conversation from earlier. Here, I brought this. I presented an envelope. Inside was a divorce paper, with my part already filled out. Fill this out. Right now.
What a considerate woman, bringing the papers herself.
Robert retorted, now looking rather smug, and quickly filled out the papers. Robert's lover, seemingly excited, said, Now, after 100 days, I can officially be Mrs. CEO. However, I immediately asked her, Mrs. CEO? What are you talking about?
Robert said he's the CEO of a top-tier company.
Robert's eyes started darting around.
Yeah, that's right.
I couldn't stop laughing. Seeing me doubled over in laughter, Robert's lover looked perplexed.
What's so funny?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who did you say is a CEO? Robert's just an ordinary office worker. And the house? It's under my name. Also, there's no waiting period for men to get remarried after getting a divorce. Upon hearing this, Robert's lover was livid.
What? Robert, how many times were you gonna deceive me? I've had enough. I thought you loved me. Well, I thought you were rich and had a big house. Otherwise, why would I fall for an old man like you?
Seeing the two bicker, my brother and I couldn't help but crack a smile. Now it's time to send my husband further into the abyss. I swiftly handed Robert some documents.
What's this now?
Robert took it bluntly, tearing open the envelope. Upon seeing the contents, his face turned as pale as a sheet.
What is this?
Do you remember when we had trouble conceiving and had ourselves checked? This is the result from back then. I didn't mention it because I knew you had some ego.
Is this mine?
Yes. It seems you can't have children. So who's the father of the child inside her, I wonder? I presented him with the test results we had done years ago. According to the results, Robert was infertile. I had not mentioned it to him since I'd come to realize that even without children, we could still be happy together. Upon hearing the news, the other woman didn't consider her surroundings and began to make a scene.
I didn't know you were infertile. Wait, so it's not my kid? Maybe the test results are fake.
Robert's lover hit and snapped at him.
If you're seedless, it's someone else's. I didn't know who the father was, so I was planning to marry you because you earned the most.
Hearing that, both my brother and I were left speechless. The two of them kept arguing, so we tried to calm them down, worried they disturbed the other customers. But they were unstoppable. My brother, as a lawyer, began to explain to them. He said I would be demanding compensation from both Robert and his mistress. The two of them cried.
We don't have any money.
But that wasn't my problem. My brother told them if they continued to complain, he'd take them to court, and they finally agreed to pay. The next day, I quickly submitted the divorce papers and kicked Robert out of my house. After that, Robert, who was incapable of doing any housework, couldn't live alone, and was disowned by his parents, and ended up marrying his mistress, Amelia. Moreover, he desperately wanted a child, and decided to raise the unborn child as his own, although they didn't know who the father was. Amelia probably figured it would be cheaper to raise the child together and share the burden of the compensation than to pay it on her own. Robert started working like a mule to pay the compensation for both of them. Once Amelia gave birth, she planned to put the baby in daycare and get a part-time job. Meanwhile, I sold my house and stayed with my brother until I found a new place. As I was preparing to move into my new house, my brother asked me not to leave, but I brushed it off saying, "You'll never get a girlfriend if I'm around." Of course, I took the dog, and we are now living together in our new home. Moving forward, I plan to continue working and being involved in bringing many more lives into the world.